welcome to this knitting podcast. My name is Diana and I will be your host. For the most part, I think that my podcasts are going to be much shorter. I will not be having acquisitions every week, and I'm not the fastest knitter in the world, so yeah, I won't have that many finished objects every week, maybe just like one a week. So yeah, they probably won't be that long. But this one might be a little bit longer because I want to take some time to introduce myself to you. So first off, I will tell you where you can find me. I am on Ravelry as Craft Needle Addict. I had to add the craft on because Needle Addict was already taken. And I'm also on Instagram as Yoop or XUbex. So, but I'll link these all down below, and I'll probably also put a pop-up on the screen at the same time. So a little bit about me. If you think that my accent sounds a bit funny, it might be in a transitioning stage. I don't really know, because I've lived in South Africa my whole life. I grew up in South Africa, and so I haven't moved before, so I don't know how accents change and whatnot. But I've moved to Scotland, so I've been in Scotland for a little over a month now. And I've also been watching a lot of American podcasts, so those three things might have an effect on my accent, but otherwise it's probably just South African. I actually doubt it's going to change at all. So as I said, I'm now living in Scotland. I live with my husband. Unfortunately, at the moment we don't have any pets. We've both grown up with pets in the past, and when we lived in South Africa we had a little cat called Salty, who now lives with my mom. But at the moment it seems like all the places available for rent and the place that we are renting now do not allow pets. So unless in the future we can maybe get to know our landlord a bit more and kind of come to some sort of arrangement, I don't know how long it's going to be before we can have pets again. And I think that's been one of the hardest things for me in moving, is that I don't have my pets and I really miss them. Sorry, I've got my notes down here, so if I keep looking down it's because I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so knitting. I first learned to knit when I was about 5 or 6, I don't know exactly, but my grandmother is an incredibly prolific knitter. She has, as long as I know her, she's always been knitting. And there's actually a funny story. When I was a toddler, I one afternoon noticed that my grandmother wasn't knitting. Now, she actually wasn't knitting, but she'd put down her knitting so she could have some of her tea. But as a toddler, I just thought, there's something wrong. So I walked over and I picked up her knitting and I tried to put it in her hands, because, Granny should be knitting. So that's kind of explains how much she knits. And my mom doesn't knit as much anymore, but back then I seem to remember her knitting a lot. So it's not surprising that when I was a little bit older, as I said, I think 5 or 6, I asked them to teach me to knit. And they did. And I think I remember knitting a scarf. I knitted a garter stitch scarf. I think it was probably only like that wide, and it was very uneven, lots of random increasing and decreasing going on all over the place. And then that was it. Then I don't think I really knit much more after that. I might have, but I don't remember anything. The next time I remember knitting was I was about 16 or 17, and I decided to knit a scarf for my boyfriend, who is now my husband. And I actually have the scarf here with me so I can show you. And I didn't know anything fancy. I didn't do any purling or anything. It was also a garter stitch, and the sides are so uneven, and I didn't know how to change colors well, not properly, but I didn't know how to change colors so that you don't get the little garter bump in it where the colors change. And he also wanted it very long, so I will show that to you now. This is the scarf which I knit for him. As you can see, I didn't even weave my ends in properly. It's just yeah, it's very messy. and the sides all bumpy, but this is a humongous scarf. I kept knitting it and I kept being like, okay, I'm finished now, I'm gonna stop this, and then you're like, no, 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 please knit it longer. So this is my massive scarf, which I'm very proud of, and I'm still glad that he has it, because it's sort of like a milestone in my knitting. And to be fair, I must say that my mom and my gran did help me a little bit. Every now and again they just pick it up and do a few rows, because they knit much faster than me. That's also, I'm going a bit of a tangent now, but I've always learnt to knit in the English method. So where you hold the working yarn in your right hand. And that's the way I always knew how to knit. But my grandmother does what some people call flicking, where you hold the yarn over your finger and you just pass it around with your finger. You don't actually put down the needle and then move the yarn around, which some people call throwing. So I always did the throwing method, whereas my grandmother and I think my mother always did the flicking method. Not to be confused with the picking method, which is the continental method. Or, yeah. So yes, so at that stage I was still knitting quite slowly, very slowly. In fact, that scarf took me about, I think it was about 2 years to finish that scarf. But I wasn't knitting all the time. I was still going to school, and I'd forget about it for a couple of months and then knit on it for a little bit and then forget about it again. So it did take a very long time, but I wasn't constantly knitting, so I'm not that slow. So yeah, that was that. And then the next time that I really got back into sort of handcrafts was when I went to university, and I had a friend who she vaguely knew how to knit, but she didn't know how to purl and she didn't know how to cast on. So I taught her how to cast on, and I taught her how to purl, and then she found a pattern for making beanies, but the beanies were knit flat, and then you seam them up the middle, so they still have the decreases and everything, but there's a seam. So we did that. We started knitting those, and in that first year I had to have my wisdom teeth taken out, and I had my wisdom teeth taken out just at the beginning of my school holidays, so I kind of stayed in bed a lot, and I knit a lot of beanies. I knit beanies for my sister and her boyfriend and my boyfriend / husband and myself and my mom, and like everyone got beanies. And I also learned to, well, I figured out how to knit on double pointed needles, and I knit one like leg warmer. That was it. I knit one, and then I was like, no, I'm not knitting the other. So I think that's still at home somewhere, just this one random leg warmer. And then I kind of stopped knitting again for a while, and I picked up so many things while I was at university. My friend and I, we were both very crafty, so we learnt macrame, and we did little friendship bracelets for a while, and we did like a whole lot of those for a while. And then I also, using YouTube videos, I taught myself how to do tatting, which is lace making with like a little shuttle, and I actually still have a piece here. I don't do it so much anymore because it is very time consuming, but here's an example of something I made. This is just like a little necklace that you like put around your neck, and I included beads in it. Don't know if that's in focus. I don't know if this thing is in autofocus, but I could probably change it. I don't know. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, well, I hope you can sort of get the idea of these little... Oops, no, that's not gonna work. Anyway, so this was a very simple pattern, but that's something that I learned to do. And then I also taught myself how to crochet. My grandmother has never really been into crochet, so oh wait, I'm gonna try one more thing that might work with this. hold that there. There we go. Now you can see it properly. That's nice. Okay, now. Oops. Okay, I hope I'm not terribly out of focus now. Yes, so as I was saying, my grandmother never really did crochet much. I don't actually know if she can crochet at all. She says she can't, but I think she can. She just doesn't really, I think she knows the basic stitches, but she doesn't really do it, so she says she can't. So I taught myself using the internet. I used some YouTube videos, and so I taught myself to crochet, and then I was really, for want of a better word, I was hooked. I loved it so much, and I crocheted beanies and scarves and blankets and floor mats and everything. I just crocheted so much. I loved it so much. And that kind of continued for about 2-3 years. I just crocheted prolifically, and I have a crochet blanket that I've got on my bed, and I love my crochet things. And I think even though I've now transitioned over more to knitting, I think I will still, if I'm making blankets or anything, I will still be crocheting them, because I'm very fast at crocheting. I'm still not very fast at knitting, but with my crochet I'm very fast. So yes, I think that blankets I'll still be doing crochet. And yes, I even had, when I was crocheting, I even had like a little market stall back in South Africa. I attended a market, and I crocheted up a whole lot of stock to sell. But the thing is, in South Africa, well, not in South Africa, in where I lived in Cape Town, it's very hot a lot of the time. And at the time that the market was, it was still very hot. In actual fact, we had an unfortunately hot weekend for me, because in winter there aren't really outdoor markets or anything, because it's so rainy, so obviously it would be miserable. But because the rest of the year it's so warm and not rainy, we don't really have that many indoor markets. So the market I was selling at, I tried to get it as close to winter as possible, but unfortunately that weekend was very hot. So I did sell a bit, but it just, I think, yeah, it just didn't really grab people because it was just such a hot day. So yeah, so that was that. And then in 2016, so last year, sort of halfway through the year, I was, well, for a long time I'd been following a blog, which probably a lot of crocheters know about, is Addict 24. The host is Lucy, and she does a lot of crochet, such beautiful, beautiful, sort of very rainbowy, bright color crochet blankets and all sorts of things. And when I was looking at her stuff, and then I saw that she was knitting some socks, and I realized that although I have crocheted some socks before, they're more like house slippers type thing, or house socks. They're not really like, you wouldn't really wear them in your shoes. And so I thought that I should try knitting some socks, because they looked they're so beautiful. They come in such lovely colors, and all sorts of patterns and stripes and that sort of thing. And yeah, so I just decided that I wasn't going to get the same effect by crocheting, so I should try knitting. And that's when I first started trying to knit on the round, on circular needles, and I unfortunately did not have any of the right, I didn't have any of the small ones, and none of the yarn shops near me stocked the, I think it's 32 centimeter or 28, I can't remember. I didn't have any of the small needles, so I started off with Magic Loop, and I knit quite a few socks like that. And then later on I did actually I managed to order in a smaller needle, but it just never, to me it wasn't the same as Magic Loop. I had to keep like inching the stitches around and then knitting them and then inching them around, whereas with Magic Loop I could just almost knit not a row, but like half a side, and then knit that, change around and then knit. So I don't know, I had a better rhythm knitting like that. So that's kind of where I am at now, knitting. Yeah, for my podcast it's going to be mainly knitting. I might have a little bit of sewing, because I do sew. I've sewn some clothing for myself, and I don't know how much clothing I'll be sewing, but I think that I will probably still be doing quite a bit of like alterations and that sort of thing, and I really want to sew some project bags. I've really been getting into podcasts, and so I want to sew some of the beautiful handmade little project bags that I've been seeing everyone using. They look gorgeous and I'd love to make some. So that is my plan sewing wise, and so I will include a little bit of that, and I will include a little bit of crochet, because I actually do still have some crochet things that I'm going to be making. I thought of something and now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Okay, well, maybe I'll come back to it. So, okay, my plan knitting at the moment is that I'm going back to South Africa in April for a couple of months potentially. It's a really long story, I'm not going to get into it, but basically I'm currently on a visitor's visa and I still have to apply for my spousal visa because my husband is British, so I have to apply for a spousal visa, and it's a really long story, but I can only apply for it in April, or at the end of April this year. So I'm going back in April because my cousin's getting married, so I'm going back then, and then I will be applying for my visa then. So, and I'll be back, I'll go stay with my parents and my sister. So yes, I'm going to take a quick break here and I'll be back. Okay, so as I said, I'm going back in April, so my plan has kind of been to try and knit all of my close friends and family something made out of yarn that's ideally made in Scotland, but otherwise British yarn. Something just special, sort of foreign kind of token, as like a birthday present or just like a souvenir type thing. So I've kind of sorted out what I want to do for everyone. Sorry, I keep talking with my hands so much. So I've already sorted out what I want to do for everyone, so a lot of that will be that. So I was trying to think how I want to do it, because I don't know if they're gonna maybe be watching the podcast, because for some people it'll be fine, like they already know what I'm gonna make them or what I have made them, but for other people I think I want it to be a bit of a surprise. So maybe I'll either just tell them not to watch the episode in which I show their present, or when I show it I'll say like, okay, now you mustn't look. I'm not sure, we'll have to see. So yeah, that I think is it for my introduction. Yes. So now onto finished objects. This finished object also comes with a little extra thing. So my finished objects are my mom's socks, and she knows about these. So I actually have quite a lot to say about these. So first of all, I made some, I haven't been able to get hold of sock blockers yet. So these aren't real sock blockers because they're made out of cardboard and they'll get soggy and lose their shape. So they're not really for blocking the socks, but they're nice because they kind of stretch the sock out so you can see. And I didn't put the other sock on the other one, so just so you can see what it looks like. I've cut it out and then I sellotaped the edges so that it won't catch on any of the fibers. And I will put a link in my show notes. This is just the pattern. I just found one online and then I printed it out and cut it out to the right size that I needed, and then traced it onto some cardboard. And I have, because we've just moved here, I have a lot of cardboard lying around, so I've been doing a lot of crafting with cardboard. So that's what I've done. So this is a lovely, lovely variegated, oh, I need to do this again. There we go. Lovely, lovely variegated yarn, which was made in, it's South African. Oops. There we go. It's a South African yarn. The brand is called African Expressions, and their sock range is Soul. And the composition is 15% kid mohair, 15% mulberry silk, 50% merino, and 20% polymid. So, and it doesn't really have a colorway name. It's just called 7203H. That's it. So I really love how it knit up, and I have found so far that the South African sock yarns are so much softer than the British ones, although to be fair, I've only knit with West Yorkshire spinners, which is actually British. The other ones I've knit with are like Reggie and Opa, which I think are German. So yeah, I find it a lot softer, but I really love how it knit up, and it's kind of almost got like a striping effect going on, although it's actually still variegated. And the other thing I want to say about this is this was the first time I tried knitting 2 at a time socks, so I knit them both on the same needle. So I knit my socks on a 2.5mm needle, and I got a 120 a cable which was 120 centimeters long, and then these 2 at a time. And I might try it again because maybe I'm just not used to it, but I found that I got laddering in these. Oh, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, so I got a ladder down the middle, and it's the same on the other sock, and also where I tried to do the heel gusset, which I don't usually get when I knit my socks. Sorry, I'm putting all these silly faces. There we go. So I don't usually get that when I knit my socks separately, and I think it's kind of where the 2 socks are sitting next to each other, and you got to move on to the next sock. It's really hard to pull it kind of tight in there, because that's usually when I'm knitting magic loop, when I kind of change across the loop, I always pull that first 1 or 2 stitches like really tight when I go around, just to make sure that it doesn't kind of stretch and get that laddering effect. So I don't usually have that, but I did get that with these, which I'm a little bit unhappy about. I'm hoping it'll sort of like wash out, like block out when I wash them, although I don't have blockers. And I know my mom won't mind, because it's not like they're structurally unsound, it's just not the greatest. So that was my experience of knitting 2 at a time socks, but I might try it again in the future. And that's all I really have for now for finished objects. And now onto my whips. Ethan, if you're watching, turn away now, close your eyes, because I'm going to be showing yours, although I think you can actually see them on the side here, so I'm going to have to just tell you not to watch this anyway. So these are the socks that I'm knitting for my friend Ethan back in South Africa, and this is how I usually knit my socks. I usually knit them concurrently, so I knit them on 2 separate needles, but I knit them at the same time, otherwise I do suffer from second sock syndrome. So I will knit the one cuff, then the other cuff, then the one leg, then the other leg, then the heel, and so forth. So what I've done for these is I've used the West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply in the colorway Blue Tit. I really like that name. I know it's a bird. And then I've used the I've just used a Drops Fable Unicolor for the heels, toes, and ankle. So I'll try and show you this. There we go. And these have been taking a really long time because I'm really lucky in that my husband and I have relatively the same sort of size feet, and so all the socks I've knit so far have been 64 stitches, whereas these socks are 72 stitches. So it has been taking me much longer, and also the foot of the sock is so much longer. Okay, my mom does have quite small feet, her feet are smaller than mine, but look at the difference. So where her sock ends is where Ethan's toe decreases start. Look at that. So these socks have been taking me quite a while, much longer than I'm used to, but I don't mind, that's fine. I'm happy to make presents for friends. So these are those. And again, I'm knitting these on 2.5 millimeter. So that's my normal 80 centimeter one, and this is, whoops, the one I bought for during Twitter time. This is 120, but I'm not using it for that. But I don't find the longer cable bothersome. I can still knit just one at a time, and that's fine. Oh, and just randomly, I don't know where this fits in, I did some foot cutouts for my husband and myself, so that when I'm in South Africa, if I decide to knit him some socks, I don't have to worry about making sure that it's long enough. Because obviously I know that he's 64 stitches, that's fine, but always when I do the foot, I'm always a little bit concerned that I'm not knitting it long enough. Another thing, oh sorry, and I forgot to say, for my mother's socks, I knit these using Winwick Mum. It's Christina Perry. I used her pattern, so it's a slip stitch heel flap and then a garter, and these that's the pattern I've been using the most, because that's the pattern that Lucy of Addict 24 used when she knit hers. And so that's just the pattern I learnt with, and I found it really easy, and so I just knit like a bazillion socks like that. Well, not really, a lot of socks like that. But the thing is, I found that when you do the, if you do contrasting heel and toe, then only this little bit up here and that tiny bit there will be contrasting. Then this gusset is going to be the same color as the other one. Otherwise, if you did the gusset in a different color, then you have a weird stripe at the top. So I went ahead and purchased Mina Phillips' vanilla sock pattern, and I've been using her heel pattern, because this one, I find it more personally, I think it's more visually pleasing to have this sort of heel construction when you have the contrasting heel. Okay, so the last thing in my whips is still sort of in the sort of design stages. So I've decided to knit a whole lot of squares. I've seen a lot of people doing those cozy memory blankets with the scrap sock yarn that is left over, and I'm going to be doing mine a little bit differently. I'm just going to knit a whole lot of squares, and then at the end I'll probably make it quite a small, maybe like a lap blanket, or maybe I'll make it like a cushion cover, but I'm going to do mine quite small because I'm very fussy about colours, which colours go next to which colours. I personally, like for my own stuff, I don't really want to have just like random stock yarn colours next to each other. I'd rather it was like sort of planned out, and so I'm not really sure yet which kind of square I want to do. I've knit up 2 samples. So this is the one that a lot of people have been using for the cozy memory blanket, and this is the mitered square. So there we go, you can see it's got like a little ridge down the middle, and this is very pretty. I really like it. Aesthetically, I like this one the best, whereas I've also knit this one, and this one is just straight normal. I cast on, I think, 30 odd stitches. Yeah, it was 30 stitches, and then I just knit down until they measured the same and it was a square. And so my the reason I'm not sure is because this one I like more, the mitered square I like aesthetically, but obviously, well, personally, I don't know if anyone has any suggestions or like tips, this would be great, but personally I have to keep counting, because if you don't know how this works, you cast on the number of stitches that goes up the one side and down the other. So I think this one I cast on 49, and then you just keep decreasing until it gets to the bottom. So you got to keep counting half your stitches and then decrease the other half of the stitches. So you always, well for me, I've always got to be counting. Whereas knitting this, I can just knit and measure every now and again. So if I'm watching TV or something, I can be concentrating more on whatever else I'm doing, or if I'm chatting to someone, rather than focusing on the square. However, it doesn't take me that long to knit a square. Oh, that was something else I was going to mention. Since I have oh no, I'll tell you that later. Sorry, I'm all over the place. So it doesn't take me that long to knit a square, and so it might be worth it. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to decide. I'm leaning more towards the mitered square. So that will be a future ongoing work in progress, will be all my little squares which I knit up, and then once I've got a suitable number, I will kind of lay them out in an arrangement which I like, and then sew them all together. So at this point, I'll tell you what I was faffing about earlier. Since I've moved to since I moved to Scotland, I obviously don't have that many friends because I've just moved here and I haven't really got to know people yet. I'm very, very lucky in that one of my husband's friends moved with us. She got a job at the same company that he got a job. They studied together at university, so it's less weird. They studied together at university, so they studied the same thing. And now they were both looking to move to the UK, and they both happened to get a job with the same company because they effectively do the same thing. So she's also here, and so that's great. I've been seeing her lots on the weekends, and it's really nice to have a friend that we know with us. And I have joined a knitting group. I used the website Meetup, and I've joined a knitting group, which is lovely. I love the people there. They're so friendly. There's such a range of ages, and there's also men and women who come, and it's not strictly knitting. It's kind of a small crafts group, so people also do crochet, and last time someone was doing weaving as well, so and I've heard people also do like embroidery or quilting and that sort of thing. So it's really nice. I really enjoy it, and I enjoy seeing the people, but obviously that's only once a week. So I've also been watching a lot of podcasts. To be honest, I didn't really watch that many. In actual fact, I don't know if I watched any knitting podcasts before I moved to Scotland, and I don't even know how I started. But it was literally in the first week that I was here, I just started watching knitting podcasts, and it's basically like the knitting podcast community has become my friends now. Every day while I'm knitting or doing something else that I have to do, then I'm listening and watching other people knitting. So that's become a big thing for me. Oh, and yes, so one of the people I've been watching is the knitting expat, Mina Phillip, and I noticed that she doesn't do the continental picking method, but she still knit much faster than I was knitting. And so she was busy doing the flicking method and not the throwing method. So I sat down and took a whole day and really tried my hardest, and I taught myself to knit the flicking method. So my knitting speed has increased a lot since then. It now takes me, okay, this is if I'm not doing housework or anything. If I'm just knitting, it'll take me about 4 or 5 days to knit a pair of socks, which I think is not bad. I know Mina Phillip has done like the sock knitting challenge thing with her friend last year in January, and she knit like 35, I think it was 35 pairs of socks in 1 month. So obviously I'm not at that speed, but I still think that 4 days for a pair of 4 or 5 days for a pair of socks is not bad. I think that's pretty good. So yes, that is that for my knitting. I'm gonna stop here and take a quick break. Alright, so for acquisitions, I'm not going to show you anything this week. I actually do have acquisitions. I ordered a whole lot of wool so that I can work on some of the projects that I want to make for family and friends back in South Africa. But as I said, I think this podcast is going to be a bit longer because I've done a whole introduction in the beginning, which I'm not going to be doing every week. And so in the interest of bulking out next week's podcast, I'm going to save that those acquisitions for then, because they just arrived. They're still in the packaging and everything. They arrived this morning just before I was still getting ready to podcast. I was still setting up everything, and it arrived. So I'm actually going to leave that for next week. and it's going to be a challenge to not open it and start knitting on anything. But anyway, that's fine. Okay, sewing. I do actually have an upcoming sewing project, but it's not a sewing from scratch. I recently, last week, went to a vintage weigh and pay, which is where they have like a whole lot of clothing hung out, and you can select what you want and try it on, and then at the end you weigh it, and then you pay per kilogram. And I ended up getting a whole lot of lovely things, which I really like. But one of them was actually damaged. I got this dress, and I think I'll probably insert a picture here for you to see what it looked like. Yeah. So this sleeve here is torn, as you can see, or I don't know if you can see because it's black, but anyway, there we go, you can see my hand sticking through. So what I'm actually going to do is but it's just the sleeve, so I'm going to unpick both of these sleeves and then probably put in like a little bit of a ruffle, like not a full sleeve, so I'm actually going to make it sleeveless, but I'm going to obviously edge the edge again and then maybe put like a little ruffle on the top, like a little faux sleeve. So I think that will be really nice. And I might also take these funny shoulder pads out. So yeah, so that's an upcoming sewing project that I'm going to be doing. I actually hadn't started it yet because I didn't have a seam ripper. Having moved here from South Africa, I have a lot of things which I have had to buy recently. Like for the longest time I didn't have a needle gauge, and so I had a project I wanted to start and I just couldn't figure out what size my needles were because, well, for one, I wasn't sure if it was a 6 or a 9, so that wasn't very helpful. But yeah, anyway, I have got a needle gauge now. So there's lots of little things which I keep noticing. Oh yes, I left that in South Africa, or I used to use my mom's and now I have to get my own. So one of those things is a seam ripper, but I have got one now. And then on to crochet, and I do have a whip. I have a crochet whip, which has been a whip for a very long time. I started this blanket in 2015, and then I worked on it for a tiny bit in 2016, and then I discovered socks, and I've been knitting socks since then, and I've not been doing any crochet. But my husband insisted that I ship it with us, and bring it with and eventually finish it. So I have this big bag full of yarn, and my blanket is in here, so it will be finished eventually. This is how it looks. Oops, covering my face. So it's just a simple sort of granny treble, but obviously not done in a square, just done in lines. And my husband, I think here, I think I've got a print out. Yeah, there's all the little, I don't know if you can really see that, there's like a bunch of numbers down here. So my husband very kindly set up an Excel spreadsheet for me, because I wanted the colors to be in a random order. So what he did is, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I haven't knit this for so long. I have 4, but I think I had more of the beige color, so I did the beige twice. So I said 5 colors, and then assigned each one. So like, I don't know, 1 would be purple, 2 would be pink, 3 would be the green, and then 4 would be beige, and 5 would also be beige. And then he used a random number generator to generate the numbers 1 till 5, like a whole lot of times for however many rows I asked him. I can't remember. And then I've just been crocheting it in accordance to that. So these are all random stripes. And I will finish it because I love these blankets. They're so nice and warm, and what's really nice with the holes is that they trap air. So if you have like your duvet, and then you have one of these and then another blanket on top. It like traps extra air inside of there and helps keep you nice and warm. Otherwise they're just really great for having over the couch or wherever. So I do love this and I will finish it, but I don't expect it to happen soon. Especially as I've got all these projects I want to finish before I go back to South Africa in April. So I really, unless I manage to miraculously finish all of those very quickly, I'm still going to be working on this. Yeah, and then I think the last thing I really want to talk to you about today is next week. So as a lot of you will know, the Edinburgh Yarn Festival is coming up, and I unfortunately did not really know about it until more recently when I moved here, and by this time all of the tickets have been sold out. But I'm still gonna go. Apparently you can queue at the door, and you can get tickets for the day that way, because basically it's inside a building, so there's a finite amount of space. They can't sell more tickets than there is space for people. That just wouldn't work. But obviously some people are only going to come on like the Friday, and some people are only going to come on the Saturday and what have you, and some people aren't going to come at all. They're going to forget about it, or something is going to happen and they're not going to make it. So they allow people to buy tickets on the day to go in, obviously depending on how many people are already in there. So I have a feeling I might land up having to have to queue for quite a long time, and that's fine. I'm happy to do that. I really want to go. And I also have some ideas. I want to buy some yarn, some hand-dyed yarn there for a shawl for my mother and my mother-in-law. And so, well, if I find anything that I think will suit them. So that's very exciting. I'm very excited to do that. And funnily enough, over that weekend, my mother-in-law is coming to visit. She has had to come to the UK for other personal reasons, but because she had to come up, she decided to come visit us. And she's coming over that weekend for a couple of days, so I'm very excited to see her. I really love my mother-in-law. I know lots of people are like, oh no, the in-laws, but I love my mother-in-law. She's very sweet. And so yes, she's going to be coming. That's very excited. I'm very excited for her to come. I'm not sure if she's going to come with me to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, because she's not really a big knitter or anything, so I don't think it would be fair for me to make her stand in a queue for potentially hours before going in. I think, like, I'm sure she'd love to come with me, and I'm sure she'd love to come, like, especially if it was like, if we already previously had tickets and we could just go in, I'm sure she'd love to come. But I don't really want to make her stand for hours when she could be spending time with her son doing something more interesting. So I don't think she's gonna come with me, but that's fine. I've already spoken to her about it, and she knows that it's happening, so it's all fine. Yeah, so that's very exciting. And then maybe the week after that I'll have some acquisitions from that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna take any footage there. I'll have to see. I'll play it by ear. But yeah, so I think that I have one more thing to show you. This is my latest cardboard creation. So yes, I didn't have anywhere to keep my long needles, and they were busy sort of cluttering up my desk and rolling all around the place, and I couldn't put them in any jars or cups or mugs or anything because they're just too long. They'd just like fall over and take the cup with it. So the other day I was thinking about it, and I decided I was going to make it out of cardboard, because as I said, having moved, we have a lot of cardboard lying around. So inside, so you can see sort of there. I can't do this one-handed, but anyway, so you'll just have to take my word. That's cardboard on the inside, and I'm okay. Let's just put this out there, get it over and done once and for all. I'm not good at maths or anything related to maths and counting and that sort of thing. So in the beginning of my life, I was like, I don't need maths. I don't like maths. It's fine. And then I started knitting, and I was like, I need maths. But anyway, I'm not too bad, but this was supposed to be a hexagon. And it was only once I'd actually finished putting it together and I was just about to start wrapping it with wrapping paper when I was like, this has 8 sides. I don't know how I did that. So anyway, this is my 8-sided needle holder. And I love it very much. It actually usually sits up here. I just brought it forward for you to see. That's where it sits. And I love it. It's great. And it serves its purpose and it looks pretty. And that's it. Yeah. So anyway, that is it for my podcast. And I hope you enjoyed watching. And please feel free to like or subscribe or whatever. And join me next week for my next podcast. And hopefully next time I will be a little bit more organized, and today's very sunny, so this sort of setup worked, but I'm not sure whether it's gonna work so much if it's not so sunny. And also I don't know if it's, I've noticed a lot of people podcast with a desk in front of them, and then like you won't see the show notes as much and it won't be as obvious like when you're looking down at them. But the thing is that this is a much nicer background than if I had my tripod set up there and you were looking out. You're basically looking into my bedroom, because my craft room is a tiny little room attached to my bedroom because we just have a 1-bedroom place. And so it won't look as nice, so I'm not sure. Let me know if my kind of fiddling around with my notes, whether that bothered you or not. So yeah. But I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for joining me. Bye bye!